Hi, welcome to part two of the mini-series about how to make yourself more valuable. So in this part two, we're going to be looking at the second thing we identified, which if you have this as a skill set, you're focusing on improving this as a skill set, makes you much more valuable to your own business or to the businesses that employ you. In part one, we looked at the really important topic of being a better influencer, high-level influencer. So if you haven't seen that one, it's in YouTube, but if you can't find it, just text us or message us and we will send you the link. But in this one, we're going to be talking about how to think more commercially or entrepreneurially. And the interesting thing about to be able to do this, even though it's one of the most common things that we help our clients work on, it's not one they tend to ask us much about. But as soon as we explain it, and especially if they've had imposter syndrome, they often say, I need to be better at being an influencer, getting my ideas heard and making sure they really count. But when we explain this one, they go, I didn't even know I needed that, but boy, do I. So the second one is not as widely known or thought about, but it's incredibly valuable. So this is what we're going to be looking at in part two. As I said, part one, we look at how to be the four steps really of how to be a much more powerful influencer, either within your own business or within the company that employs you. So, as I said, being an entrepreneurial, commercially focused thinker is one of the top two most valuable skills that we help people with. It's incredibly useful, both of them. And the higher up you go up the ladder, or the bigger the business that you're in, this becomes more and more valuable. So what do we mean by commercial or entrepreneurial thinker? And a lot of people think you can't train this, but actually you can. It doesn't mean that you're going to be turning into, the next Elon Musk overnight, but actually to be able to think this way is very, very valuable. And to explain this, we need to look at what I call the genius zone. This is my genius zone. It's not, there's many other people use the phrase zone of genius. But this is the model I created and I work with my clients. And even though it's just three circles in a Venn diagram, it's actually can tell you a hell of a lot about you, how to build your team, how to create a team around you. Is it balanced in the right way? So I'm going to explain to you very quickly the overall view of the concept of the genius zone. So one, you can then understand why perhaps you haven't got as many commercial thinkers in the business as you think. And also, if you need to be more of a commercial thinker, when perhaps your training hasn't ever really taken you down this path. So let's explain the genius zone model, and we're going to start with the worker. Now, most of us start in our businesses or careers many years ago when we got our first job. So what we did was became a worker, and we got paid for the hours we did or the amount of things we processed. But as a worker, we start off with getting instructions and told to do something. So this is where most people start. So I want to explain that. Now, this is not about skills. This is the difference between my genius zone model and anybody else's, I believe. This is not just about the skills you have, because we can be a manager, an innovator, or a worker in terms of skill sets. But what I want you to think about is something slightly different, which is about what you love doing the most. And what I mean by this in the genius zone is that over the years of working with people, over the last 20 years or so, what I've noticed is there's only really three ways of thinking about business or work. And we have them in front of us: worker, manager, or innovator. So this is about how we think about work, not the skill sets. What we have is a attitude of what we love to do. So do you love to be a worker? Do you love to be a manager? Or do you love to be an innovator? And it's very deliberately innovator, not entrepreneur. And I'll come back to that in a moment. So workers get a real kick and satisfaction out of being good at what they do, creating a good job, being able to use their skills and knowledge and having satisfaction at the level they work at. So you may be at heart a worker who's learned your skill set through your particular area of expertise, and you have learned to be good at what you do and you feel pride from that. If that's you, great, that's fantastic. Because we need really impassioned and devoted workers who are good at what they do. But often what happens is we want to have more influence, or we want to have more salary, or we want to build a business. So as a worker, our job is to do things. But actually what we need in business is also is to be able to control things. And this is what managers do. And I mean control in a very good way, not controlling of people in a nasty way or micromanaging. Managers who are what I call natural managers like to be in control of the people and the systems to make them work efficiently. So there's scalability, the profit is created by as the business grows and everything is under control, right people, right things at the right place at the right time. So everything works well. So some managers, as you go higher up into the red, they like to innovate and create new systems and new ways of doing things. Some managers, a bit lower down, they like to be in control of the systems that they've been told to be in control of. But managers ultimately get a great deal of satisfaction out of just making the whole thing work. It's all organised. Everything's good. Now, there's a lot of people who are in that role who struggle in this role because they actually don't think like this. They're more of a worker in their mindset, or they're innovators. They're creators. So innovators love to create new ideas, new businesses, new products, new programs, could be absolutely anything. So we're not talking about artistic creation, although it could be. It could be new ways of selling a product, new ways of marketing it, whole new businesses. They love ideas. So innovators like to create, managers like things to be in control, and workers get a huge amount of satisfaction out of doing a great job at their task. And what we have over the years, I've noticed there's a first preference, a second preference, and the thing that's third in the preference of what we like to do, if we could spend all our time doing these things, is the one we like doing the least. So this is why a lot of people get promoted from worker to manager. Actually, often one, they don't think like natural managers, so they struggle, and they're never taught how to be a good manager. So therefore, they really struggle when they were the best worker in their team. And they get promoted because of that. They have a huge amount of experience, or the company needs them to manage the team because of their technical expertise. And they hate it, and they're stressed, and they fail miserably a lot of the time because they don't think like a manager, and they don't have the skills of a manager. So that's a little side issue why that happens so often. But actually, if you could promote them to director, where they could be using all their skills in the worker, but on the right side of the genius zone, on the innovator on the right-hand side, above worker, and you give them the ability to create new ways of using their skills in business to grow the business, they can be a brilliant leader, but they're just a terrible manager because it's such a different skill set. So there's lots of ways we can use this. And the reason I'm explaining this is because most people are not commercially minded because their main training experience is to be completing tasks as a worker. Most workers are told, do this, now do this, now do this, now do this. Excellent. Do this, do this, do this. And most workers either are trained to behave like this, or they're just focused on what they're doing because they really love what they're doing, or they just do what they're told to do because they've got to turn up from 9 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock, do what they're asked to do, and they go home and they have no concept or desire to think about how this connects with the rest of the world in terms of the business. They don't care how it connects, or they've never been told how it connects. So they can't think commercially about the commercial health of the business because they've just been told next, 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 next. And it's never even crossed their mind. And managers are also often not very as commercially minded as you want them to be because they're so into just controlling the system that they were told to control. Now, they may be a manager or maybe a worker who is going up more into thinking towards innovator. They get creative and they start to see how things connect, how things to improve. But most of the people in a larger business, they focus on the tasks that they're meant to do, either as a worker or as a manager. So their training, experience, and what they're asked to do on a day-to-day basis never gets connected to the overall health or the growth of the business. And here's the killer. Not all innovators are entrepreneurs. Now, some people in that red zone will put entrepreneur at the top there. But actually, most innovators don't think entrepreneurially because they're into creating new ideas or new ways of marketing. But it's because they love creating ideas, not necessarily about the commercial value of them. They know they've got to because they're in a business, but it's the fun is creating the new marketing campaign. And it will make us more money, but their real focus is the enjoyment of creating the new thing. And most innovators are not entrepreneurs. All entrepreneurs are innovators, but not the other way around. So you might have a lot of innovators who are not very commercially minded. And this becomes incredibly so valuable as a skill when you're on the left-hand side. There's a lot of entrepreneurs I work with who are on the right-hand side who go from worker to innovator. They're entrepreneurial. 75% of entrepreneurs sit on the right-hand side of the innovator zone. Only about 25% sit on the left-hand, because the people on the left-hand side, they think more systems. They think more process. And most amazing entrepreneurs, they know they need systems in place, but they want to move fast and they get frustrated when you have to put systems and processes in. And this is why people who start business and start to scale them get really frustrated when it gets so big you need the control systems in place. So if you are on the left-hand side, you're more of a natural manager, innovator manager. Often you've gone through processes of training where you don't necessarily have to think that commercially. And surprisingly, I work with a lot of CFOs who've training of process around accounting and finance means that they're very much in control of the finances, but they don't think to become more of how to use the finances to grow the company. They usually more think about it in control of it so it doesn't go wrong. So there's a whole attitude shift. And if you're thinking that's crazy, actually it's really common. It's really common. I work with so many CFOs who their task has been to make sure nothing goes wrong and to, be the gatekeeper of the money, that they don't realize there's a whole way of using their experience and skills to grow the business, because that's what they've never been tasked with before. So it's a very common thing. People who are very good at controlling the processes and even organizing, creating process on the left-hand side, don't think like the CEO or the sales director who are looking to create money. So it's a very, very, very important skill to think about, because it's more about what your brain is concentrating on that you have to change, and then you can learn the skills of how to be more entrepreneurial and commercial. Most of us are held back by our training and our, what we've done possibly for years to get to this point. And then I'm working with people at C-suite level or senior manager level, and they realize they're very good at making things happen, but not thinking more entrepreneurially. It's too risky for them, or they just can't get past their great skills of making sure everything is under control. They won't take risks. So it can definitely be on both sides. Are you wanting to run your own company, or do you want to become the CEO of the company? Do you want to use those skills you have as a worker or manager and think, I want to run my own business, but actually, whenever I had the opportunity to make big commercial entrepreneurial decisions. So it's more of a way of thinking that needs to change, which then leads you to look at things differently. And this is what we do with a lot of our clients, because they're used to working as a worker or as a manager. And especially on the left-hand side, if you've been very structured and systems and process, you're good at this. The next step, it's not a big step, but it's a significant step to say, how do I go from COO to CEO or CFO to CEO? Making that step of different ways of thinking. And this is where people have imposter syndrome, or I can't do that, I'm not entrepreneurial. Suddenly you think, I am, because I want to run the company. But you're running it with your structured skills, but entrepreneurially. And it's a very, very important shift that they make. And as soon as they make it, all those amazing skills with a slight change in attitude and thinking, then, through practice and looking at things in a different way, all of a sudden they just blast through that glass ceiling. So there's a lot of people at that C-suite level that won't let themselves go to the commercial thinker, the CEO level, when absolutely they could. So if this has got you thinking, because everyone's slightly different, but if it's got you thinking, you think, you know what, I just need a chat over this because I think I'm there. I'm not sure. Or I definitely want to be the leader of my own business or the leader, CEO of somebody else's business. And you think, I'm just not letting myself get there. This may be the reason. Being a better influencer is the first thing. And do you need to be more commercially entrepreneurial in your thinking? We can help with both. Hope this has been useful to you, valuable. If it's got you thinking, then just get in contact and let's have a call. We can discuss the plan to get you there. Thanks for your time. I look forward to speaking to you soon.